So me, I just say, let's just get it together
Yeah.
and have deep conversations. But first we have to get ourselves together.
Mm. Wow. I love that. Yes, sir. Hearing you say we built the house, that's so true, because being on the phone with you, hearing you talk about our culture, who we are, and us taking credit for what we do, whether it's in hip hop, whether it's in science, mathematics, us knowing our culture. And so often growing up, I would hear people say that Black Americans, that we don't have a culture. But after more studies and growing up, maturing, I see, like we are the culture itself. How do you feel sometimes when you see people try to demean who we are as foundational Black Americans?
I see them as being very having an inferiority complex,
Mm.
and their attempt at demeaning African Americans is only because they realize how great we really are.
Mm.
Because if you were a humane being, if you saw a people who didn't have anything, you would attempt to help them,
Mm.
not push them down.
Mm.
So understanding the role that we've played in history, even on the plantation, that was a classical African civilization. That was royalty right there.
Wow.
See, it's going to how you define royalty, what royalty is.
Mm.
What we went through as a people, when you study it. Right now, brother, I am reading the book, The Delectable Negro.
Mm.
And that's blowing my mind, brother. Because that's a part of our experience on a plantation that a lot of us have very serious problems facing. We have a very serious challenge having to conjure up those memories. I'm speaking about intergenerationally because we may not be going through it, but somewhere in our heritage, we had ancestors that did go through this.
Mm-hmm.
The psychosexual homoerotic experience that not just the Black woman had, but the Black man had at the hands of these demons. And to think that in spite of that and despite that, we were able to come to where we are right now, talking to each other, Caleb and Kaba.
Mm-hmm.
To think that we were able to overcome that makes you a classical African civilization in every sense of the word. And I think that when I hear people talk, I tell them, you know something? Like, you're dumb. And I really don't have time to talk to you.
Mm.
Because if that's where you're going to come from with me, then what can we say to each other?
Mm.
You don't know my history. If you do know my history, you don't want to face it.
Mm.
So either way, I ain't got nothing to say to you.
Mm.
Because I want to talk to people that understand what we've done
Mm.
and can understand what we can do. And then most importantly, let's do it together. So I've avoided distractions. That's one of my hashtags. No distractions.
Mm.
And there will be people that will try to put you down. But when you know how great you are,
Yes.
nothing they say can touch you. Can't, MC Hammer can't touch this.
Yeah.
Okay? Talk to the hand. You can't touch this.
Yeah.
What our sisters have gone through historically, through the genes, queens.
Mm.
Queens in the highest sense of the word queen, if you want to use that word. We can use Hemet Neset Waret. We can use whatever word we want, but whatever is a classical female energy, our Black women have been that and have done that. And we as Black men must respect them.
Mm-hmm.
And they must respect themselves. You can't ask someone else to respect you if you don't respect yourself. We as Black men cannot ask others to respect us if we are not respecting ourselves. And when you respect yourself, most folk will leave you alone. They found that when sisters dress in Muslim garb, or if they dress in African garb, most brothers don't say a word to them on the street. That's derogatory. And I'm not saying that it's a matter of respect, how you dress. What I'm just saying is people's perceptions of how they're going to approach you changes according to how you present yourself to the world. And we as Black men, okay, our perception has a lot to do with this. But first we have to respect ourselves. But to do that, you got to know your history. And so I know people have a lot to say. You know, Instagram is a very interesting thing, Brother Caleb. I learn a lot about people on Instagram by their comments. And something that I've learned sometimes that happens with humans is that when you say something, okay, I'm going to stick a pin there. I'm going to go back to why I teach brain anatomy. Right now, what I'm doing, speaking, comes from the frontal lobe of my brain in a place known as the Broca system, BROCA. What you are doing and what the audience is doing is coming from your temporal lobe in the back underneath. It's called the Wernicke system, WERNICKE. Broca system is where speech production occurs when I'm speaking. You're comprehending what I'm saying comes from the Wernicke system. When I stop talking and you start talking, you start operating from the Broca system and I start working from the Wernicke system. Okay? I've noticed sometimes with people, when you say something, they're not listening to you. They're listening to what they're thinking. And then they'll tell you something that has nothing to do with what you just said.
Yeah.
And that's when I say, you missed my point. Because what you were doing in your Wernicke system was not comprehending my speech. You were comprehending the speech in your head. And now you're going to tell me that I said that. I didn't say that. And so I've noticed that as a people, and as a people of cross cultures, we look but we don't see. We hear but we don't listen. We sniff but we don't smell. We think but we don't know.
Yeah.
In other words, all of our senses have another sense to it. It's a spiritual sense. You have 3 eyes, 2 physical, 1 spiritual, third eye. You have 3 ears, 2 physical, 1 spiritual. Grandma said, you hear what I'm talking about? She ain't talking about these ears. She's talking about comprehension and understanding. You see what I'm talking about? She's not talking about these eyes. She's talking about your third eye. Have you ever tasted something that's not in your mouth? Wow. Felt something that didn't touch you? You have 2 skins, 2 tongues, 3 ears, 3 nostrils, 3 eyes, 2 brains. Because thinking is a skill. And I think as a people, one of the things that was taken from us is our ability to understand that third or that second aspect of the spiritual sense that we have. And they took that from us because they took us being from Africa. And when we lost our culture, we lost our spiritual common sense.
Mm.
And all of our decisions are coming out in favor of other people.
Wow.
Like a log and a swimmer. A log is, you put it in a water, turbulent water. The log, the wave come, push the log that way. Another wave on the other side come, push it over the other side. Wave come from up, push it down. Wave from down, push it up. But a swimmer can swim through the wave, can use his or her body to move away from the current, the force, and be able to control the direction in which they're going. A log cannot. So I ask our people, are you a log or are you a swimmer? You know, somebody's going to jump on Bill Cosby. Somebody's going to jump on Kanye West. Somebody's going to jump on Michael Jackson. I could go through the list of people that they've jumped on. And all we do is just go with the log. We're pushed around. Wherever the wind blows us is where we fly. We're not critical thinkers. That's what Malcolm X was trying to get us to understand. Think for yourself. Particularly your generation. But in many ways, I have a lot of faith in your generation. Because y'all are doing it. In a lot of different ways. Y'all are doing it. And I guess my generation did it too. And I would imagine my father's generation. But every generation, remember that do, re, fi, ma, sol, la, ti, do. Every time you get to the second do, it's the same do as the first one, but it's at a higher octave. I think every generation has taken it to the next level. And there have always been those that have stayed behind. You know, on the plantation, there were Africans that gave up being free because they were guard posts for the Underground Railroad. And they knew how to guide other Africans through the Underground Railroad. And they knew that if they left their post, somebody might not get free.
Wow.
So they were willing to give up their freedom, remain enslaved, in order to be the conductors on the Underground Railroad. There were those like Harriet Tubman and others that took the people to the north.
Right.
But there were other guideposts on the plantations who had dug holes where the people could go down, had food down there for them when they got there.
Wow.
And the Underground Railroad always traveled, interesting, astronomically. The Underground Railroad almost always started around the winter solstice, when the nights were the longest. So you had more time on the road to travel in the dark. So they normally always started just before the holiday. Let's call it Christmas for now.
Wow.
And they always traveled at night. And there were those on the plantations from south to north that knew where to send people. And we have had great opportunity for brothers and sisters who could have gone on the Underground Railroad and left us behind. Been able to get a good job, good money. Dr. Clark, Dr. Ben, Asa Hilliard. These are all folk that could have gone and taught history and taught language arts and taught things on a different level and made buku bucks. But they chose to stay on the plantation so that we could get through. I look forward to the time when there's no plantation and that we be free wherever we are. But right now we're not. And right now is probably the most critical time, because now they know that we know their time is up.